Hi, I'm Joseph Lanashki. I'm going to be your educator for the Final Cut Pro 10 training series from Video to Brain. The first thing that you'll see is a short video explaining how to make a movie from start to finish. This includes importing, basic editing, transitions, titles, things like that, and then outputting it to a service like YouTube. I encourage you to watch that once or twice, and if you like, you can follow along as well with the supplied footage. That'll give you an idea of just how easy it is to edit in Final Cut Pro 10. From there, you can launch into a whole series of very detailed videos explaining all the most important features in Final Cut Pro 10. We go into them each individually, showing you how they work and talk about when and where to use them. The way that the training is designed, you can start at the beginning and go all the way through start to finish, or you can just jump around and pick the pieces that you want. Do you want to learn how to do transitions? Watch the transition video. Sound editing? Watch the sound video. Color design? Watch the color video. Lots of different pieces in there, and you can watch them however you like.
Final Cut Pro can be a very advanced and complex application. However, it can also be quite simple and approachable. Over the next several minutes, I'm going to show you how we can build a movie from scratch, including transitions, titles, music, and even color effects, and then share it on YouTube, all with very little effort. You may want to just sit back and watch this once or twice, but then follow along using the supplied footage. All the lessons that come after this go into much more depth on each feature you'll see here, as well as many more features. However, sometimes it's nice to just start simple. Let's get going. To begin, we need to import some footage. From the File menu, choose Import from Camera, or you can choose to import files. In this case, we're going to import files off of the desktop. There's a project folder you may have downloaded called Small Project, and inside of that, you'll find 3 different folders: Cooking, Introduction, and Prep. Each one of these folders has 1 or 2 video clips in it. This is the content that we'll be working with. You can choose to add your content to an existing event, or to create a new one. I'll create a new one and just call it Cooking. There are several different options you have when importing your content. In this case, all we want to do is enable import folders as keyword collections. Notice how all the footage has already been broken up into different folders. By selecting that option, each one of these folder names will be applied to each clip as a keyword. This can help in organizing our footage later. Go ahead and click on Import, and all your footage will be imported. Any transcoding or copying that has to happen will go on in the background, and you can get to work right away. Here we have the cooking event that we just imported, and as you can see, we have 4 different clips. You also notice that we have these 4 different keyword sets here: the Cooking, Introduction, Prep, and then there's also one for Small Project. That's the folder that all those other clips were inside of. Let's start off with Introduction. The first thing we want to do is select a clip or part of a clip and add it to a new project. To see what a clip looks like, you can simply skim your mouse over the clip and see it playing back immediately in the viewer. And at any point where you actually want to start playing it, just tap the spacebar.
Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka and I would love to share a Slovenian pancake recipe with you today. This recipe was handed down by my grandmother to my mother and then to me.
As you can see, we have quite a long clip in here, and for this project I don't actually want to use the whole thing. I just want to use a piece of it. Notice when I click on a clip, it is surrounded by a yellow box. That box denotes the selection that's been made. In this case, the entire clip has been selected. However, I can grab either edge of that yellow box and trim up the amount that I actually want to use. There's a couple different ways we can go about selecting our content. You just saw one of them. What you can also do is simply click and drag across a clip. And then of course you can refine it by clicking and dragging on the handles. It can be also quite helpful to look at the audio waveform in the clip that you've imported. By looking at that, you can usually see exactly where someone starts talking and stops talking, which may be a good indication of where you want to start and stop your shot. In this case, I can see in the waveform that there's a gap here, and then she starts talking again. Now if you're having a hard time seeing this, you can actually zoom into these clips a bit. Down in the bottom right corner of this event browser, you can click and drag on this slider until you start to see your clips get bigger. And that'll give you a little bit more detail to work with. Let's go ahead and make that selection. I think it starts right about here.
Hello and welcome to my kitchen.
Perfect. So I'm going to just click and drag from there. Now how much footage do I want? Do I want the rest of the clip or just part of it? I'm not really sure, so I'm just going to go ahead and stop dragging right about there and see what I've got so far. I know I want the beginning, so I'm just going to skim forward a little bit and start playing again.
My name is Alenka and I would love to share a Slovenian pancake recipe with you today.
I think that's great. I want to stop right there. So now that I've positioned the playhead at where I want to stop, I need to trim the end of the clip to match that playhead. I could simply drag the handle again, but another way to do this is to tap the O key. That's O for out point. By the way, to set an end point, you can simply tap the I key. Now that I have the portion of the clip selected that I want, I'm ready to add this to my project. However, you may have noticed that we don't have a project yet. Depending on how much you've used Final Cut Pro, you may or may not see an icon right here that says Create New Project. If you do, go ahead and click that. If not, then simply click on the plus symbol over here in the bottom left corner. Name the project whatever you like. I'll call this Cooking Show. It's usually best to just leave everything set to automatic. And then click OK. Now I have a blank project that's ready to add footage to. I've already made my selection here, so to add this to my timeline, all I have to do is click and drag it down onto the timeline. And once it's down there, it's a good idea to check it and make sure that you got exactly what you wanted.
Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka and I would love to share a Slovenian pancake recipe with you today.
Perfect. Now let's add another shot. If you go up to the prep folder here, you'll see that we have a shot of her whisking the pancake batter. That's quite a long shot. We probably don't want this whole thing. So again, let's just grab part of it. This time, all I'm going to do is just click and drag to get the portion of this that I might want. Once that's selected, I can add this to the timeline by clicking and dragging it down as you saw before. However, there's a couple other ways to do this, and it's worth getting to know these other ways of working so that you can work quicker. In between the event browser and the timeline, you'll see a row of 3 icons here that have to do with editing. The first one is called Connect, and this will connect a clip on top of an existing clip on the timeline. The middle one is called Insert, which will allow you to insert a piece of media between 2 existing clips. And the last one is called simply Append. This will add your clip to the end of the timeline. That's the one you're going to use the most. So we're just going to go ahead and click on that, and it automatically adds that clip to the end of the timeline. Let's add another shot. Now I'll go up to Cooking, and you see here we have a clip where the pancakes are made and being put into the pan. Let's just select part of that again, trim up the ends a little bit, and I'll add that to the timeline. This time, instead of dragging it or clicking the button, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut. You see the tooltip as I hover the mouse over the button, and it tells me that the keyboard shortcut is simply the letter E. So to add this to the timeline, I'll simply tap E on the keyboard. If we play through the project so far, we're going from the introduction to mixing the batter to the pancakes being made. It looks like we've missed an important part of the story, making the pancakes. And as you can see, we already have that footage up top. Once again, if I play through this, you'll see that it's a lot longer than I really need. So I just want to grab a certain portion of this. I'm going to go ahead and scrub through and get to the point just before the batter goes into the pan. And you notice here by simply moving the mouse back and forth, and I'm not clicking and dragging, I'm simply skimming the mouse over the clip, I can very easily find exactly the frame that I want to start with. Start right there, and I'll click and drag that out, and I'll stop it just after she sets the pan down. Now that that's been selected, I want to add this to the timeline, but I don't want to add it to the end. I want to insert this somewhere else earlier in the timeline. The place I want to insert it is right here, between these 2 shots. I can put the playhead in that position, and then click on the Insert button, and that will automatically insert the clip between those 2. I'm going to undo that and show you another way to add that clip in. We can also just drag and drop the shot. Notice as I do this, that Final Cut Pro automatically moves the other content around on the timeline, showing me exactly what's going to happen when I let go of the mouse. Now that I've done that, we'll see that we have that new shot inserted between the 2 existing ones.
Perfect consistency for the pancakes. It takes a bit of practice, but when you pour batter into the...
Looking great. Now let's do a little bit of cleanup on the timeline. A couple of these clips that I added in, I just clicked and dragged, and I wasn't really paying very close attention to what part of the content I was actually selecting. So let's play this from the beginning and see what we've got so far.
Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka and I would love to share a Slovenian pancake recipe with you today.
So now we have her whisking.
Then we add flour. The trick with the flour is you put flour in to the point where you get the perfect consistency for the pancakes. It takes a bit of practice, but...
I'm going to stop playback there. Notice that at the end of her discussion about the consistency of the pancakes, she started to say it takes a bit of practice, but, and then got cut off. So we need to fix that. Now I can either make the shot a little bit longer and add more footage in, or I can trim it down and make it shorter. I want to make this a very quick little video, so I'm going to make it shorter and get rid of that part entirely. Just like you could move the selection point up here while selecting part of the event to begin with, you can also go down here onto the timeline, select a clip, and then position your mouse close to the end or the beginning of that clip, and then just click and drag to trim it. Watch what happens. I'm going to click and drag on the end of this shot here, and as you can see, we are now trimming down that timeline, changing the out point. Remember to watch the audio waveform, which can be very helpful in determining where you actually want to trim to. I'm going to trim to right about there, and let's see how that works.
Consistency for the pancakes.
Perfect. We've trimmed it to just the right point and that gap between her speech. Now let's go to the next shot.
When you pour batter into the skillet, make sure it's really, really thin layer.
Looks pretty good. I think we could trim a little bit off the beginning there. So I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag on that and tighten it up just a little bit to right about there. Then we have the last shot on the timeline where the pancake goes into the pan. Great shot. Let's trim that up just a little bit as well. Again, just click and drag. And I'm going to drag forward, and if you're watching the video in the viewer, you'll see that I can easily see exactly what frame I'm moving to. That's too far, for example. I don't want to start the shot with the lid already open. I want to start the shot just before she reaches to it, right about there. Fantastic. Next, let's take a look at some of the audio problems that we have. You may have noticed that the dialogue was quite quiet, whereas the sounds over the pan here were really at a good volume. To raise the levels of audio, it's incredibly easy. Notice down here on the timeline you have a waveform and a line above that. If you click and drag on that line, you can raise the levels of the audio up or down, and notice that the waveform draws along with it. Go ahead and raise all three of these up so that they're a bit louder. Now let's listen again.
To the point where you get the perfect consistency for the pancakes.
There we go. The audio levels are much better now. Next, let's add a title into this. Adding titles in Final Cut Pro comes from the title browser over here on the right. As you can see, there's all different kinds of titles that you can add in here, and they've been broken down into categories for you. For example, there's builds, in and out, bumpers or openers, also finishing credits and other special elements, and then even lower thirds. I'm going to go to the bumpers opener category. And if I go up to the top of this, you'll see this one titled Ink. I love this title. To get a preview of what this is going to look like, simply skim your mouse over the thumbnail here in the browser. That's the title that I want to add. Now where do I put it? An obvious place to put it would be right at the beginning of the project. However, I don't want to put it there. I want to put it between these two existing shots. I think that'll be a great place for it. Let's play it and see how it looks.
Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Alenka and I would love to share a Slovenian pancake recipe with you today.
So we go from the introduction into a title, and then it's going to transition into the shot. The title right now simply says title, and that's no good. So let's go ahead and change that. I'll select the title here in the timeline, and notice that I now have a little box around the word title up here. If I double click on that, it selects it, and now I can type in whatever I like. Let's put pancakes. Now that the title's been created, I can go back and play it again. However, I had a feeling that this was just a little bit too long. I want to shorten it up a little bit. So to do that, just like any other clip, I can simply click and drag to change the beginning or the end of it. But because this is a dynamically generated clip, it doesn't matter how short or long I make it, Final Cut Pro will automatically re-render it, giving us the perfect duration for that particular title. That looks great. Now, any one of these titles is likely to have more options than what you see in front of you right away. If you click on the little I button here on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that it opens up the inspector. From here, we can see all different types of properties for that particular clip. In this case, for the title, we can change the font, we can change the font size, we can change the color, we can even change the background that's behind the text. As you can see, there's quite a few different ones to choose from. I actually quite like the bamboo for this, so I'm going to put it back to there. Great, now we have our edit done, and we have a title inserted, and even the audio has been fixed. But it's a little bit drab and boring. Let's get some music in here. Go to the Music tab, under Music and Sound, and you'll see in here that you have a collection of Final Cut Pro sound effects, If you're an iLife user, you'll see you have iLife sound effects. And if you scroll down the list, you'll see that you have access to your entire iTunes library. Go ahead and pick any music that you like. I'm going to go up to this iLife sound effects collection and choose one called Vino. If you want to preview it before you add it to your timeline, simply select it and tap play. This is perfect for this project. To add it to the timeline, once again, all I have to do is click and drag. And I can choose exactly where I want it to go. I want this playing behind my existing project, so I'm going to position it probably not at the beginning, but how about right where the title begins? And now when I play it, we'll hear her introduction, and then the title sequence will come on, and the music will be playing behind it.
I want to share a Slovenian pancake recipe with you today. Then we add the flour.
So far so good, but you may have noticed there that as her new dialogue started, we couldn't really hear it because the music was too loud. So to make our music quieter, just like we made our dialogue louder, simply click and drag on this little black line to lower the volume. Let's take it down a little bit and then check it against the dialogue.
The trick with the flour is you put flour in.
Sounds pretty good. How about we add a transition in here next? You'll notice that so far, everything is just straight cuts as it goes from one shot to the next. I want to have something different as we go from the title to the opening shot. Drag the playhead back and tap play again. As you can see again, it's just a straight cut. Let's get a nice transition in there. The Transitions browser has tons of different transitions you can choose from. And the type of transition that you choose is quite important to telling the story. To see what a transition will look like, simply skim your mouse over the thumbnail. As you can see, there's lots of different types of transitions in here that you can work with. Cross dissolves are pretty common, but in this case I want to add something called a fade to color. I could scroll through here and look for it, or simply go down here to the search field and type in fade to find the one that I want. There it is. To add this to my project, simply click and drag it onto the timeline. I want to put it between the title and that next shot. By the way, if you're feeling a little bit cramped, it's easy to zoom into your timeline. Simply tap Command plus or Command minus to zoom out and zoom into your timeline. Let's play this back again. That's pretty good, but it dips to black, and what I really want to do is have it dip to white. When I select the transition, just like when I select the title, you'll see various options showing up under the inspector. Here's my transition, fade to color, and you see that it's currently set to fade to black. I don't want that. I want it to fade to white instead. So I'll change that to white and play it back again. Looking pretty good. Let's zoom out and see the entire project at once. A keyboard shortcut for that is simply Shift-Z. As we can see, the timing for the whole project is working out pretty well. The music almost matches the duration of the whole project perfectly, but it does end a little bit short. Let's pay attention to the ending here. I think having the music fade out before the shot ends is okay, but that's just a little bit too tight. So this is where it comes down to just refining your edit. I think I'll go in here and trim just a little bit more off the beginning of this shot, and maybe a little bit more off the title as well. By doing that, I've shortened the duration of all these clips, making the audio last a little bit longer. Finally, at the end of this clip, I want to have it fade to black and not just end on that frame. If you reset your search inside of the Transitions browser, you should see Cross Dissolve at the top. Just drag and drop Cross Dissolve onto the end of this shot, and that'll automatically give you a fade to black. Fantastic. At this point, you're ready to publish your project. However, you may want to play with some special effects, for example, color effects. There's a fantastic effects browser over here as well. Once again, as you skim your mouse over the thumbnail, you'll see exactly what that effect will look like once it's applied to your shot. Scroll down, and you'll find hundreds of these that you can choose from. Here's one here called Quick Flash and Spin. It applies kind of a cool effect to the very beginning of the shot. I want to add this to the beginning of the introduction. So, simply take that Quick Flash Spin and drag and drop it onto that beginning clip. Now when I play it back, you'll see what this will look like.
Hello, and welcome to my kitchen.
It's kind of a cool effect. I think I'm pretty happy with the project the way it is right now, so I'm ready to share this with the world. From the Share menu, choose YouTube or any other service that you like. From here, you add in your account and password, choose a category to add it to, add in your title, description, and tags, and then you can also choose what size you're going to share it at. It's currently set to set size automatically. You can also make it a little bit smaller if you don't want to upload something quite so large. Once that's all filled in, click on Next, and the video will render and upload automatically. As you can see, producing videos in Final Cut Pro can be incredibly simple and very approachable, and a lot of fun. Now I recommend that you go back to the beginning, import the clips that I showed you, and follow along. Feel free to pause playback of this video as you explore different parts of the application. But don't forget, after this brief introduction, there's a whole bunch more video training for you to go through. I hope you enjoy all the lessons we have set up in front of you here. It's a great way to learn Final Cut Pro, and it's going to be a lot of fun. See you soon. The Final Cut Pro interface can seem a little bit daunting at first. However, once you understand the basics of where everything is, you'll find that it's quite simple to find exactly the tool that you need. The interface is divided into 3 primary segments. In the top left, you have the event browser. In the top right, you have your viewer. And across the bottom, you have your timeline. Let's start with the event browser. The event browser is where you locate all of the footage that you have imported into Final Cut Pro. On the very left, you see a list of your hard drive, and then broken down by date, you'll see the events that you've imported. As you import footage, you can import it into an existing event or into new events. In this case, we're going to be looking inside this event called Alenka's Kitchen. Inside of the event, you can see that your content can be organized into folders, smart collections, and keyword collections. Whatever you select in the browser here, all the content that matches that criteria will show up here on the right. If you're running out of space, you can easily hide this view by simply tapping this icon here. And then we're only looking at the content itself. You can preview the content by simply skimming your mouse over the thumbnail. How you view those thumbnails is also controllable. Down in the bottom right of that window, you'll see that there is a slider that allows you to see all of the content at once, showing you all content as a single thumbnail, or as you scroll this back, you'll see that you can start to view your content a little bit more zoomed in. Sometimes it's easier to look at the whole thing at once, or sometimes you want to get a closer look at each clip. To the right of that, you see a little switch that allows you to change the clip appearance. You can change the height of the clip, and also you can choose whether you want the waveforms to be displayed or not. To the left of this, you'll see that you can switch between the current thumbnail view or as a list view. The list view also allows you to see all the different keywords that are assigned to each clip. If you're looking for a specific clip, you can use the search window up here. To the right, you have your viewer. The viewer is where you see whatever content you're currently working with. At the bottom of the viewer, you have your play controls.
Pancakes.
You also have the ability to jump forward or backward a clip, or also to move forward or backward a single frame at a time. From here, you can also choose to view your content in full screen mode.
Dobertek. That's in Slovenia.
Tap the escape key to get out of full screen mode. To the right of the full screen button, you also have a looping icon. This will allow you to loop the content that you're currently looking at. To the left of the play controls, you have 3 additional tools: transform, cropping, and distort. When you have a clip selected in the timeline, you can access these tools. So if you need to reposition a clip, crop a clip, or distort it, you have access to that from here. In the top right corner, you can choose how you view your canvas. Do you want it to fit the entire window? Or do you want to zoom out and see it just at 25% size, 100% size, or even zoom in farther? In the very top right corner, you have another switch which allows you to see different options. You can choose to display your video scopes, which, if you're doing color correction, can be very handy.
Yummy flavor.
You'll see that you have various options in here as well. You can view a histogram, you can view vector scope, or you can view the waveform. And you'll notice that everything is updating in real time. These displays will change size as well, depending on the size of your monitor. If you go ahead and change the interface, you'll see that they will change with it.
Now let's...
And if you ever want to hide that window, simply go back to the switch. If you'd like to reset your window layout, at any point you can go to the window menu and choose Revert to Original Layout. Underneath the event browser and the viewer, you'll find a strip of tools before you get to the timeline. Let's start over here at the left. This is a simple one-click icon to allow you to import footage. To the right of that, you have your rating tools, allowing you to mark a clip as a favorite, to remove any markings, or to reject it. You also have access to your keyword controls, and your primary editing tools. From here, you can connect, insert, or append a clip to your timeline. To the right of that, if you click down, you'll notice that you can choose to do those controls to all content, video only, or audio only. And finally, to the right of that, you have access to your editing tools, your selection, trim, position, and so on. In the middle of this bar, we see a timecode display. By default, this is going to show the current time of the playhead. However, there are additional controls in there. If I have a clip selected on the timeline as I do here, and I tap the plus or the minus key on the keyboard, you'll see that that changes to show me the edit that it's about to perform. At this point, it says plus. Now if I type 1.0, it's going to move that clip 1 second forward on the timeline. You can always undo if you make a mistake there. To the left of the timecode, you'll see a little circle that currently reads 100%. If you tap on that, it'll open up the background tasks browser. This shows you all the background activity that's currently going on. This could be transcoding, importing, rendering, or more. If at any point you see this window showing anything less than 100%, you know that there's activity currently going on in the background. To the right of the timecode display, you'll see your audio level meters. As you play your content, you'll see these meters moving.
To add that extra yummy flavor.
If you click on that, you'll get a larger view of your audio waveforms over here on the right. Currently, you're seeing 6 channels of audio because this is set up as a surround sound project. If it was set to stereo, you would only see 2 meters in here for your left and right channels. To the right of the timecode display are a few more buttons that allow you to control your clips. If you select a clip in the timeline, this first tool will allow you quick access to your color controls and your audio controls. To the right of that, you can access your speed changes, allowing you to speed up, slow down, reverse, and pause a clip. To the right of that, you'll find a row of icons opening up various browsers that you have access to in Final Cut Pro. The first one is your video effects browser. Then there's the Photos browser, the Music and Sounds browser, Transitions, Titles, Generators, and finally, the Themes browser. To the right of that, you have the Inspector button. This is a very important button as this will open up the inspector view that allows you to see exactly what's going on for the selected clip. You'll see that you have access to the video and audio properties, as well as to an info tab that gives you all the information you need about a particular clip. Notice at the bottom of that, you have various views that you can choose from, and to the right of that, you have the ability to add custom metadata fields if you need to as well. At any point, you can close the inspector by simply tapping on the I button again. To close the browser, just tap on the little X next to it. Before we get to the timeline, there's one more bar between the timeline and everything else. This has a few more tools on it. The row of 4 icons here represent skimming, skimming for audio, solo, and snapping. Skimming is currently turned on, which means as I move my mouse across the project, you'll see the footage playing back or skimming in the viewer. However, the way it's set now, we're not hearing the audio skimming along with the video. If you'd like to hear the audio, simply enable that as well. And now, you'll hear your audio skimming as you move the mouse. Then you have your solo tool, which allows you to isolate the currently selected items. Let's say that you have a very complex timeline, and you want to focus on the dialogue here without having the music in the background distracting you. You can select that clip and tap on the solo button to isolate that. Now the only thing you'll hear playing back is that soloed item. Finally, you have snapping. With snapping enabled, the playhead will automatically snap to various edit points in the project. This can be very handy when you're trying to align different pieces up with each other. However, if you're trying to align something just a few frames off of the edge of another clip, you could find that the snapping gets in the way. If you disable that, now when you move your playhead over it, there's no snapping involved, and you can position anything exactly where you want it. On the other end of this bar, you'll see the title of the current project that you're working on. To the right of that, you'll see an icon that in this case represents that the object has been published, and to that, a little warning triangle telling me that the content has changed since it was last published. To the left of the title, you'll see 2 arrows, left and right, allowing you to step forward or backward through the timeline history. This is handy if you're working with multiple projects, or if you have compound clips inside of a project. Once you open a compound clip to go back to the previous point in the timeline, you can simply click on this arrow to move back. On the bottom right corner, you'll see that you have various timeline views. You can zoom in and out of your timeline, like this. And you can also click on this view to change the clip appearance. Finally, on the bottom left, this will allow you to go back to your project library, showing you all the different projects that you currently have on your computer. Each one of these projects can be organized inside of folders, and if you have multiple hard drives, you'll see all of those listed here as well. Finally, you can create folders to organize your projects in, or create a brand new project here as well.